Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Soraya and I was born and raised in Australia. And simply put, the reason as to why I yearn for the Khilafah is frankly because I'm not living in it. Instead, I'm living in a deadly and catastrophic man-made system called capitalism, which oppresses humanity across the world. This catastrophic man-made capitalist system is completely and utterly responsible for causing great misery and suffering for not only hundreds of millions of Muslim and non-Muslims in the Islamic world, but for people such as myself living in Western countries like Australia. The system of capitalism that is rooted in secular liberalism has brought nothing but misery to humanity, including extremely lopsided wealth distribution, a tragically broken family system, never-ending wars, and widespread tyranny. Such is the magnitude of the chaos caused by capitalism. It has now reached a stage where the corruption and harm it produces has now become normalized. And we can see this with the growing normalization of LGBT, rape, incest, and child sexual abuse and pedophilia. Therefore, I'm not only yearning for the Khilafah due to the misery and suffering that our Muslim brothers and sisters face in the Muslim world under its oppression, but I also yearn for the Khilafah because it affects each and every one of us. No one is left unaffected from the harmful effects of the capitalist system, for we are all victims for it, wherever we live. The other important reasons as to why I yearn for the Khilafah is because it is not only the vital issue for the Ummah, but it is also an obligation upon each and every Muslim to work to help re-establish it upon the path of prophethood. And performing this duty is like any of the other duties prescribed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon the Muslims. And it is an urgent obligation upon which there can be no choice or complacency. And negligence in performing this duty is one of the greatest sins for which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala punishes severely. Nafi'a reported, saying Abdullah ibn Umar said to me that he heard the Prophet ﷺ saying, "Whosoever takes off his hand from allegiance to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will meet him subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of resurrection without having any proof for him, and whosoever dies on his neck to a Khalifa, he dies a death of jahiliyyah, of ignorance." So the Prophet ﷺ made it compulsory upon every Muslim to have a bay'ah on his neck, and described whosoever dies without a bay'ah on his neck, that he dies a death of jahiliyyah. And the bay'ah cannot be for anyone except the Khalifa. And the Prophet ﷺ made it obligatory upon every Muslim to have on his neck a bay'ah to a Khalifa. And accordingly, no Muslim on the face of this earth has an excuse to abandon the duty of establishing the deen which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordered. That is, establishment of a Khalifa for Muslims when there is no Khilafah on the earth, and no one to implement the limits, the hudud of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and no one to protect the sanctities of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and no one to unify the Muslim community under the banner of La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. Return the Khilafah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.